Good day, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be at you here in about a little bit over a minute. Hang tight with us.
$30.
10-4. Remind me to bring my dad a cowboy hat tonight.
Remind you to what?
Bring my dad a cowboy hat.
I got you.
You having some stupid function at the old
All
folks.
right, here we go.
Well, let's do this.
This is Armed American Radio's Daily Defense.
Armed American Radio's Daily Defense, because they don't want me to, that's why I do it.
Presented by the National Rifle Association. From the CZ Studios.
They're never going to stop us here.
Here is your host, the loudest conservative voice in America fighting the enemies of freedom, Mark Walters.
Yeah, they're never going to stop us here. They're never going to stop us here. They might want to try, but they're never going to stop us here. And the left, never stops, right? But they're never going to stop us here. Welcome inside Armed American Radio's Daily Defense Garbage Day at the Ranch with you. I am Mark Walters, filling your prescription for freedom today and every day here in the CZ Studios. It's all brought to you by the National Rifle Association here at the Patriot Mobile Communication and Command Center. If you want to watch the program, you can do so over at facebook.com/armedamericanradio, facebook.com/armedamericanradio. You can catch us on Twitter, live on the X stream, X formerly known as Twitter, at AAR Mark. And if you do, please follow us over there at Twitter. Help us take our social media back. Like and share the post. We appreciate that very much. You can watch us on YouTube at Armed American Radio, Rumble at Armed American Radio. You can catch us on riverside.fm as well, or you can watch and listen at armedamericanradio.com. You can take your pick over there, either one. Just don't watch while you're driving, please. You can listen to us there. It's easy to do. Let's go right to our guest today. He's going to stick with us for the hour, Parkland Father Ryan Petty. Ryan, welcome to the show. How are you today? We have a lot of ground to cover, brother.
Mark, I'm doing well. Great to be here today. Let's get rolling.
Let's get rolling. You sound like you're ready to rumble. You ready?
I'm ready to rumble.
You ready to rumble? Let's rumble. All right, let's do this. Well, I'll tell you what. Let's start with your neck of the woods down in Florida, because Broward County, a judge in Broward County, just deemed the 18 to 21 carry ban unconstitutional in Florida. Now, this only applies to Broward. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I didn't see the ruling, but that could be the case.
It is. You have to trust me and believe me on that. When I did get, well, let me put it this way: I'm 99.999% sure, but it only applies to Broward. Now, I don't know what direction this is going to take, but isn't that music to your ears down there? That there's finally movement. Of course, you have the National Rifle Association spearheading the lawsuit at the state level as well. So this is a really positive development, is it not?
It is, and the other thing for folks to remember, we haven't been able to get the legislature to repeal the parts of the Parkland school safety bill that included gun control that were unnecessary, or are unnecessary. I think you and I have talked about this a number of times, Mark. I think at the time they were politically required, but ill-advised, and I wish we would have gone a different path. Unfortunately, it's taken 7+ years to get this part of the bill fixed. And so hopefully these judges will throw it out. That'll force the legislature to have to deal with it. They've been unwilling unwilling to do it up until this point. Both sides of the aisle, obviously, and both the leadership in the House and the Senate have not wanted to touch this. I think for fear of offending Parkland families, and I have been on the phone with the last 3 or 4 speakers. I've met them in person. I've told them this would not be offensive. What I find offensive was using gun control in my daughter's name, and I would support them in repealing this. In fact, I'm willing to go public or do a road show or whatever they needed me to do to get rid of this stuff. So it's good that it's happening. I think the courts are going to force it to happen. The good news, too, as you know, is our Attorney General, James Uthmeyer, has said that he's not going to defend the law. So the state is not going to defend this part of it. And I think the rights of 18 to 21-year-olds in the state of Florida will be restored very soon.
So if they're not going to defend it, what does that mean?
Not a lawyer. They're just not going to defend it. So if there's a court battle against it, they're going to lose. They're going to let the state lose.
So let me ask this, kind of I guess a bold question, maybe, is the way to frame this. They going to arrest somebody 19 or 20 years old for carrying a gun?
I think there are certain law enforcement agencies in the state of Florida that would absolutely do that. It is the state law. But I doubt many of the prosecutors are going to pick up and carry it to the full extent of the law. In other words, prosecute it fully.
Yeah,
they'd probably be inclined to plead it down to a fine or something like that. The problem is that really it doesn't preclude an 18 or 21-year-old from possessing these weapons. It just says you can't sell them. So I think the real enforcement happens at the dealer, at the FFL. They're not going to sell a firearm. You might get a private transaction or two or something like that might get challenged, but I don't think there's much of an appetite to prosecute unless that gun was used in commission of a crime, right? And then, of course, you and I and others have been screaming for years that we want our prosecutors to actually deal with criminals that use firearms in the commission of a felony, and they seem to always plead those down to almost nothing. So, law-abiding citizens are precluded from exercising their right at 18 to 21, but while criminals are given the soft-touch treatment by the Soros prosecutors around the country, and that happens even here in Florida.
Yeah, here's my advice, ladies and gentlemen. Don't push the boundaries. I'm not asking you or telling you to do anything illegal in the state of Florida, but advice to prosecutors and to law enforcement: there's plenty of bad guys in Florida you can go after, okay? And leave the good guys alone. Don't violate any laws down there yet, ladies and gentlemen. There is movement in Florida right now, and that's just solid advice. You don't want to do that because you don't want to find yourself a test case for, in any circumstance whatsoever. But there's movement there. Now, I don't know what the legislature is going to do. Florida legislature dragged its feet on open carry, never did anything about it. It took the court system to fix that problem. It might very well have to happen now, too, with this part. Now, again, what about red flags? Very popular in Florida. I know a lot of people don't like to hear that, but the gunshine state uses red flags, from what I understand and the numbers I've seen, more than any other state in the nation.
Absolutely. And that is backed by many of our sheriffs, as you know. You and I have talked about this a number of times. This is one part of the legislation that I initially thought was promising and would help until I really understood the due process violations that come along with these red flag laws. And my question back to law enforcement has been, if somebody is actually a threat, why don't we deal with the person? Because the red flag laws, as you know, Mark, and as we've talked about a number of times, they're used to remove somebody's firearms that law enforcement believes represents a threat to themselves or others. My question is, if somebody is an actual threat, why don't you lock them up? Why don't you get them into a treatment program? Why don't you do something with that person? The person is the threat. The firearm is not the threat. we don't take their knives away, we don't take their baseball bats away, and we certainly don't lock their fists up, right? We know, you and I know, fists kill more people every year than rifles. So we're not really, it's sort of like I had a headache every day. I'm just going to keep taking Tylenol. We're treating the symptom, we're not treating the cause. And that's what I'd like to see revised about these red flag laws. There's already something in Florida called the Baker Act. It didn't have the teeth that it needed, and we have considered as a state a number of times in strengthening and revamping the Baker Act, which is something I think we should do and stop trampling on the Second Amendment rights of the citizens of Florida in this idea that somehow we're safer because we do that.
What's your? Let's go to the break with this, and probably readdress this when we come back from on the flip side here. But what is your advice to the sheriffs? We won't name any. We could, but we won't. Who are just all gung ho on these red flag laws and using them by the hundreds and sometimes thousands in their county?
My advice would be to sit down with your state attorney, right? We don't call them district attorneys here. We call them state attorneys, and there's one per, a region. There's several regions within the state of Florida. I would sit down with them and say, look, every time I would have used a red flag, I'm going to follow due process because I'm a constitutional officer in the state of Florida, and I'm sworn to uphold the Constitution. I believe red flag law are a violation of due process, and therefore a violation of the Constitution. And so, Mr. State Attorney, I'd like to work with you if I believe somebody is an actual threat, I would like to work with your office to ensure that we're dealing with them as a problem, be that counseling, incarceration, whatever it is. Let's work together on this and let's stop violating their constitutional rights.
Yeah, and I'm going to throw a couple things at you, ladies and gentlemen, when we come back regarding Florida's issue, because most states have something similar, yours included. And we'll dig into that when we come back. That will just render red flags completely unnecessary. Don't go away. We'll be right back and explain.
All clear.
10-4.
following segment of Armed American Radio's Daily Defense is being brought to you by Patriot Mobile. Visit patriotmobile.com/AAR and use the AAR promo code to get free activation today. Welcome back to the show.
Yeah, welcome back to the show. Mark Walters sitting in the CZ studios with you in front of the Patriot Mobile Communication and Command Center microphone. All of it brought to you by the National Rifle Association. If you are watching on your devices, this is a Patriot Mobile activated phone. You too can do the same thing. It's really, really simple. Visit patriotmobile.com/AAR. Take advantage of a free month of service. You don't have to move all your phones. You can do them piecemeal or move them all at one shot. If all of your phones are paid for, that's the easiest thing to do. It doesn't take but about 20 minutes. And you've got same numbers, great service using all of the major networks towers, not just your own network, but all of them. And you're supporting a business that supports not only this show, but your constitutional right to bear arms as part of their corporate mission. Think about that one. The nation's biggest Christian-owned mobile. Guys, this is the real deal, okay? You get it all the way around. They're at every single function fighting for your rights. They put their money behind your rights. They wear it right there on their sleeve. PatriotMobile.com, PatriotMobile.com/AAR. Take advantage of that. And again, you can find all of our great partners that support this program, all of our great sponsors at ArmedAmericanRadio.com. More about them coming up throughout the rest of the broadcast. Ryan Petty, Parkland Dad, welcome back. Brother, it's great to have you here. A couple things I want to go over with you. We talk about the Baker Act in Florida, and now there's another act that most Floridians don't even know about. It's called the Marchman Act. I'm going to assume you're familiar with the Marchman Act as well?
Not as much as I should be, Mark.
It's what it is. It's the Baker Act on steroids. So let's just cover this because most states have a version of this. So here's a quick overview of why red flags are unnecessary in the state of Florida, unless you just like taking people's guns. The Baker Act is a Florida law that allows for involuntary examination for up to 72 hours for a person deemed to be in a mental health crisis. Now, designated professionals, including law enforcement, can initiate a 72-hour hold if they have a reason to believe that the person is a threat to themselves or others or is unable to care for themselves due to a mental illness. The process is for individuals who may be in danger and refuse voluntary treatment or cannot decide if it's necessary. They can take you. Now, Ryan, let's just stop there for a second. Take the person means take the person away from their guns. Deem this person under a red flag scenario to be mentally unfit. Don't take the person who's deemed to be mentally unfit. Just take their guns and leave the mentally unfit alone. That doesn't make much sense, does it?
It doesn't. When you dig into these and really understand how they work, it's not just the due process violation, which in and of itself is bad enough, right? The issue is that we're not addressing the underlying cause, or grievance is the term that's used in that space, Mark. It's called the grievance. What is causing this person to want to become violent or to make threats or to have threatened somebody? Again, if somebody does actually threaten somebody, let's take it seriously, right? Let's arrest them. There are laws that we can use to address the urgency and the immediacy of a threat or a potential threat. We don't need this new thing called red flag laws. I think what most law enforcement, and they're going to get mad at me for saying this, but I think it's a convenience tool. I think it got broad support here in the state of Florida after Parkland. It started sweeping the country. It's the favorite tool of the gun controllers. And I think a lot of them just said, you know what, this is one of those easy ones where we really don't have a very high bar to be able to use it. And so, it's no harm, no foul, right? If there is no threat, then he gets his gun back in 14 days. I think is the term, or the term of the initial penalty, right? And then if a judge finds that you were a threat, that could be extended up to a year. I think it's just a convenience thing. It's just easy, right? There's not a lot of pushback. People go, oh, well, that person's a threat. Yeah, we'll just take it away. I don't think we realize the erosion. But you leave the threat in place.
Yeah. And now the threat is angrier than before. because there's been no
the
crime
threat-
committed. It's very, very important to understand. And I want to read yet again, because guys, understand that your state has something similar to this. Most states do. Okay? So the process in Florida, remember, this is for up to 72 hours, what we're talking about. You remove the person who is the problem. Are the guns ever the problem? The person is the problem. So you're literally removing the problem by getting this individual the help that is deemed to be necessary and at least looked at for 72 hours. Now, if a judge deems that it needs more time, the system, then they can keep him under a judge's order. The person is taken to a receiving facility is what happens for an involuntary examination for up to 72 hours. In some cases, the judges can review a petition before a pickup order is issued. Now, to get a little deeper into this, the Baker Act in Florida also can override parental authority in an emergency situation, whatever that's deemed to be. The Baker Act can override parental authority if a minor poses an immediate danger to themselves or others. And, you know, if you look at other states, Florida calls it the Baker Act, but most states have something very, very similar in their own laws on the books for involuntary commitment for individuals with mental health concerns. So, again, I think that gets to your original point in the previous segment. We don't take their bats. We don't take their cars. We don't take their drugs, whatever it may be. We don't take whatever it is that can be used for a weapon. Their knives, their bats, their sticks, their clubs. We don't cut their hands off. We don't cut their feet off. We take their guns. Now you've got an angry individual who had no idea this was coming, Ryan. And that in and of itself could be a recipe for disaster. Who's the person that did this to me?
Yeah, it creates another grievance, and oftentimes these are domestic situations,
Or turn
and
into
the
them
person
quickly.
that's that turn into them. The person reporting is often family or a spouse, and that's a recipe for explosive. As you know, a lot of law enforcement officers get killed during these domestic disputes. I guess one protection we have in Florida is that you can't, as a family member, or an acquaintance, or a friend, or a neighbor, red flag somebody. There are states where that can happen, like Oregon, I believe, is one where a private citizen can ask. I know Connecticut's that way, California's that way. You could just imagine two neighbors that, hey, Mark, I don't like how you mowed your lawn, or you came over onto my side, and we exchanged words, and I say you threatened me, and now I've got, I bring over the California State Patrol, right?
Yeah, and I know he's a gun owner. Officer. I'm scared now.
I'm scared now. Or even go as far as lying and say you threatened, you
30.
me with a gun.
Yeah.
So this is where it goes kind of, this is where there is at least some protection in the Florida law. However, the challenge, and it's been almost 7 years since I heard testimony. We had experts come in and talk about the Baker Law, Mark. The challenge with the Baker Law right now is that most of the time that facility that you're talking about ends up being an emergency room with doctors and nurses that are not trained specifically in mental health specialties. And so the person gets kicked out almost before the law enforcement officer can finish the paperwork, and that's a problem.
Necessary changes can be made to that when it comes to protecting your constitutional rights and your due process as an American citizen who's facing an ex parte order with no criminal action. We'll go into the Marchman Act when we come back. It gets better. Don't go away. Guys, will be back at you in about 20 seconds.
The following segment of Armed American Radio is proudly being brought to you by the National Rifle Association. Help us defend freedom by visiting nra.org/AAR and join today. Welcome back to the show.
Yes, indeed. Welcome back. Mark Walters filling your prescription for freedom today in the CZ studios here at the Patriot Mobile Ranch and Command Center. And it's all being brought to you by the National Rifle Association. Make sure to join or rejoin, please. I would show you the range bag because I've had it here in the studio with me, but my son's got it literally at the range right now using the free range bag we're going to send to you that they sent to me. So I could show you, but we use it, and I have to keep fighting to keep it here because everybody wants to take it with them. But we're going to send you for a 1-year membership, join or renewal. Either one, doesn't matter. 1 year or 3-year membership, you're going to get a free range bag. 5-year life membership, you're going to get a pair of 10x42 binoculars with the lens covers and the case. Really, really nice binoculars. It's not cheap stuff, ladies and gentlemen. It's $35 for 1 year. Please, please join us in this ongoing fight. You hear this conversation about red flag laws, etc. We were talking about those with the National Rifle Association just on Sunday's Monster Cast and what's going on in Maine. And the NRA, again, is at the tip of the spear in fighting on your behalf, particularly if you're behind the blue wall where they just love their red flag laws. Florida Bright Red also loves their red flag laws. All right, this is how we win. So join, please, get off the fence. The water's warm. We need your help. Help us get back up to 6.5, 7, 8, 9, 10 million members. Imagine how powerful we would be if we had the NRA back at numbers like that. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, it's extremely important. It's $35 for a 1-year membership, and we're going to make it possible for you by giving you a free range bag, okay? There's your $35 right there. So help us, and it's easy to do. nra.org/AAR, nra.org/AAR. Real simple. You can find them at our website at armedamericanradio.com, along with Heaven's Harvest, along with Patriots Relief, along with Centerfire Digital, Crossbreed Holsters, Car Arms, CZ, all the rest of them. They are all there for you at armedamericanradio.com. Support them all, please. It's why we're here, quite frankly, for the past 17 years and how we stay another 17 years because they're never going to shut us up. Ryan Petty, welcome back. So we're talking about red flags and the Baker Act in Florida, which most states have. Now, I'm not familiar with how many states go an extra step like Florida does, but most people don't know about even Floridians don't know about what's called the Marchman Act. And it's a law that allows for involuntary or voluntary assessment and treatment for substance abuse for up to 60 days. So it's like the Baker Act on steroids. And to initiate this process, the petition has to be filed by a qualifying individual, such as a spouse, relative, or service provider, and must provide evidence, in this case, that the person has lost self-control and that their substance use has caused them to inflict or threaten to inflict harm on themselves or others, or is self-neglectful, that person. And a court reviews that petition to determine if it should grant an order for involuntary treatment. So the eligibility, who's eligible for this, Ryan? A petition can be filed by a person's spouse, legal guardian, any relative, a licensed service provider, or an adult with direct personal knowledge of the substance abuse impairment. Criteria is the person in question must be in a state of substance abuse impairment where they have lost the power of self-control. Criteria for the petition must state that the person's substance use has resulted in the following 2 points. The person inflicting or threatening to attempt to inflict or unless inpatient treatment is provided, would inflict self-harm to themselves or others, and the person being self-neglectful and without treatment, their physical health is likely to deteriorate. Now, there are major steps that you have to go through on this one. You have to gather the information. You got to file the petition. It's got to be reviewed by the court. And there are various options for doing all of these things. And then there's the cost for treatment, et cetera, which must be paid for by the petitioner, respondent, or the respondent's family, as the court does not provide funding for this. So in most cases, if you have health insurance, it will likely pay for this. Now, Ryan, I know somebody from many years ago that was Baker Acted in Florida involuntarily for the 3-day, 72-hour period because of their substance abuse. And at the time that person was picked up, unknown to him, at the time. The party, which was his wife at the time, said, look, we need help here. Come get him. She was asked, are there any firearms in the home prior to their arrival to make sure that they were secured away from the individual. Now, this process through the Baker Act in Florida saved the man's life. Okay? He was a very close friend of mine. He's alive today because of that and is very thankful after the fact. But again, I go back to this is removing the problem, which is the person themselves, not the gun. And I think when these acts are invoked, now, again, it makes me wonder, if you like red flag laws and you're in a position of authority as law enforcement in the state of Florida, you just like confiscating guns when you have these two other avenues available to you that accomplish the same thing without taking the guns. I don't know if that assessment's true or not, but it seems like it's pretty obvious.
I think, I think I'll stick with where I was in the last segment, Mark. I think these red flag laws are convenient for a lot of law enforcement agencies. It's easy. There's hardly ever any pushback. There's no one to defend the person being accused, right? Because you don't get an attorney right away. That takes time. You've got to pay to defend yourself when you have that finally get that due process hearing. Up to 14 days later, kind of a thing. And I think they do them faster here. But you can imagine the abuses, right? Again, I think it's just I think it's just convenience, and that's why they're so popular. Really, what we ought to be doing, if we actually care about solving these problems, we've got to get into what's going on in that person's life. And I don't want to sound like a leftist that's trying to make excuses for somebody, but there are times when people get into a bad spot, right?
Whether
crisis,
it's economic. Happens. Sure.
These things happen to people, and we as human beings have to recognize that. We've got to put some mechanisms in place, because what used to happen, right, when we were kids, Mark, and maybe even before we were kids, family took primary responsibility. Then there was the church would take secondary responsibility, and then the community and government would step in. We live in a world now where government is the primary caretaker for so many people, and unfortunately they're stepping in. And again, I don't think the solution, whenever government gets involved, it's always the worst option. It doesn't matter at what level of government. You're either going to jail, or they're confiscating your property, or they're violating your due process rights. It just doesn't matter. It's like a blunt instrument, government, right? And they don't understand the problem that's going on in that person's life, and they don't have the tools or the means to help them. But at least with what you read in the Marchman Act and what I know of the Baker Act, assuming we could get some things reformed on it, they're at least involved in trying to point the person in the direction of getting help. But again, I don't think government's going to solve it, but government can point you in the right direction. That actually is, as this conservative thinks, that is a conservative view of what government should do. Don't tell me what to do. Don't force me to do this. Just point me in the right direction. And if I come back, Mark, if that counseling and all that other stuff doesn't work, and I come back and I present a threat again, okay, now it's time to step it up, right? Step up the consequences. So I think we have to care enough about our neighbor to say, let's find them the resources to figure out what's going on in their lives and causing this issue, and get them out of crisis as best we can. Taking their firearms away isn't going to bring them out of crisis. No, it's just going to make them mad.
It is going to make them mad, and it makes them madder when someone shows up unannounced because they didn't know this was getting ready to happen. Now, when it comes to a bag, at least I can talk about this from personal experience with this personal friend of mine over the years. His wife contacted me and other friends and family for advice. What do I do? And the advice was pretty much across the board. He needs to get help. Get him help. And if that's what it's going to take, if he won't go on his own, then do it. You're going to save his life.
Right.
Okay. He will admit that to you today. He has, to me. And this was over 30-some years ago.
30.
So those things can work, ladies and gentlemen, and they do not have to screw you out of your constitutional rights to do so. He was not a criminal, never been a criminal, never had as much as a parking ticket. Maybe a parking ticket, maybe a speeding ticket, but certainly nothing worthy of taking his firearms away from him. As a law-abiding citizen, without his knowledge, they were seeking him to help himself. And if he wouldn't do it on his own, they did it for him, and it saved his life. There are ways around these red flag laws which are absolutely unconstitutional. Maine, are you listening to this? I certainly hope so. Armed American Radio's Daily Defense. We're going to cover a couple more topics when we come back. We'll move as fast as we can. One more segment to go with Parkland Father Ryan Petty, a regular on the show. We'll be right back. Guys, we're on the final network break of the show. We'll be back at about 48 after the hour, just under 4 minutes from now. Stick with us. The live broadcast will resume at 48 minutes after the hour.
What was that?
Mics are live on the streams.
Gotcha.
This segment is brought to you by Attorneys on Retainer. Get the only self-defense program for gun owners backed by a real law firm, the Attorneys for Freedom. Visit them online at attorneysonretainer.us. Welcome back.
Indeed, welcome back. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're watching on your devices, I am holding up my Attorneys on Retainer card. I do this every single day on the show, 6 days a week. It's that important If you carry a firearm, you've already made the decision. You already know bad people are there. You might have to use a gun one day. You know that could happen. It's rare, but if it does happen, this is who you need. Period. This is it. This is the first call you make. Right away, after you call 911 and say as little as possible, then you call your lawyer. And your lawyer is only $35 a month. This is the biggest no-brainer we've ever had on this show. I promise you, I don't take that lightly. We've been doing this a long time. And this is the best sponsor we've ever had. These guys are the real deal. And it is attorneysonretainer.us. AAR is the promo code. Take advantage of this. You do not want to let this one go by. Please don't be that person. It will happen. And I don't want it to be you, where somebody makes the mistake, doesn't do it, was thinking about it, and finds themselves in a defensive gun use, and all of a sudden they are on their own. Don't let that be you. It's not going to happen at my house. No, no. All of my family members have this card. You should too. Attorneysonretainer.us. The promo code is AAR. You will save $50 off the sign-up fee. It's $35 a month. It's a no-brainer. Get off the fence. Jump in with us. Like I said, get in the pool with us. The water's warm, guys. This is how you keep yourself out of hot water, with a team of attorneys that have your back when you need it the most. Believe me, you don't want to find yourself empty going, oh my God, why didn't I do that? No, 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 no. Take care of it now. Attorneysonretainer.us, and all of our great partners. You can find them all at armedamericanradio.com. That includes budsgunshop.com, budsgunshop.com. Make sure to check out our exclusive online retailer. How much ammo do you need? Some of you say, I got enough ammo. No, you don't. One more box. Buy it from Buds. Support the businesses that support this voice on the airwaves every single day. budsgunshop.com. When you get to the website, you'll see all the clearance stuff. Millions of customers over there for a reason. budsgunshop.com. armedamericanradio.com for all of our great partners. Ryan Petty, welcome back, brother.
Great to be here, Mark.
Did you want to put a final exclamation point on that very important conversation? Because this is on the ballot in Maine right now, and Maine is getting ready to make a big decision on this.
Yeah, I wish Maine would just not do anything. They had the yellow flag law, which was probably about as much as you and I could palate successfully. They should just stay where it was. Again, though.
Agreed.
Here's the problem. It's like every time this happens, right, is we find out that people knew something, right? There were warning signs. And what happened? Government failed in Maine, just as they failed at Parkland, just as they fail in most of these instances, right? I've read the statistics to you before. 90% of these shooters or these attackers signal to someone else their intentions. Mm-hmm. Many times, Mark, that information makes it all the way to law enforcement, and then law enforcement drops the ball. And then what does law enforcement do? They come out, they go to the legislature, they say, if we only had more power, right? If we only had more authority, if we could only take your guns away without due process, then we could stop these tragedies. People, stop. You've got to stop falling for this. Government is not the solution to the problem. Government is the problem.
Oh, sounds like Ronald Reagan again, right? There we go. You're channeling your inner Reagan. And you're right. And he was right. Government is not the solution.
Don't reward failure with more power. That's the wrong approach. And Americans, it's time for us to stop doing that. We've got to hold these people accountable rather than giving them more authority.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing. Well said. I'll leave it at that. Let's cover a couple more topics quickly. DOJ declares DC magazine ban unconstitutional in stunning reversal. This from Ammo Land today in an article by Jose Nino. The Trump administration's Department of Justice has delivered a significant blow, and I love this, excruciatingly painful blow to the un-American, Constitution-hating, gun-grabbing, leftist gun grabbers and the gun control crowd, the zealots. Significant, excruciating, painful blow to gun control advocates by declaring that Washington, D.C.'s ban on large capacity magazines, read that as standard capacity, ladies and gentlemen, violates the Second Amendment. This is, according to Jose, in an unprecedented legal move, the United States filed an unopposed motion to vacate the conviction of Juan Peterson, who had been found guilty on November 9, 2023, following a jury trial for possession of a large capacity, that means standard capacity magazine, ammunition feeding device, under D.C. Code 72506.01. In their filing, the Justice Department made their position crystal clear. It is the United States position that 7250601 is unconstitutional. As a result, the United States is not prosecuting violations of 7250601 and believes that in the interest of justice, Peterson's conviction should be vacated. The government went further, stating that the statute encroaches upon Second Amendment rights and cannot survive constitutional scrutiny. Whoosh. Ryan.
I'm just chuckling.
I'm sure you are.
Couldn't happen to a nicer city? I don't know.
Yeah, big spate of violence in D.C. last weekend, too. 12 shootings in the course of about 12 hours. And get those National Guard troops back out there again, right?
Yeah, I mean, we've look. President Trump showed the people of D.C. how to solve the problem, and it isn't by draconian gun control measures, right? That's not going to solve it. What's going to solve it is getting feet on the street, police on the beat, working with the community, getting tips, and building trust with the community. And the National Guard wasn't there long enough to really build trust, but they were feet on the street, right? Mm-hmm. They were bodies out there dissuading the criminal element from acting, and so that was a good thing. It freed up DC police to actually do some police work, right, once in a while. So, look, the way to solve this is pretty apparent. I think the folks in DC understand that now.
Lock them up.
They probably are never going to vote for Trump or Republican. But at least their eyes have been opened and they know how to solve the problem.
You better believe it. And part of this ruling, this is great. Take a listen to this, or this DOJ anyway. Standard capacity magazines holding more than 10 rounds, because this draws off of Heller and Bruin, ladies and gentlemen. Here's how strong it is. Standard capacity magazines holding more than 10 rounds are extraordinarily common, with over 700 million in circulation nationwide. That's according to research by the National Shooting Sports Foundation. And we're reminding you that these standard capacity magazines that the left calls high capacity ammunition carrying devices, whatever nonsense it is, come standard with most of America's most popular firearms and facilitate armed self-defense. So this is huge. Ryan, we're running out of time. I didn't have time to get to where I wanted to go with the CCRK BA alert, but ladies and gentlemen, I'll get to that with you tomorrow on Armed American Radio's Daily Defense on a Thursday. Ryan, thank you for being here, brother. I appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Thank you for having me, Mark. It's always a pleasure to be here and with the AAR crew online.
Oh, boy, and you're going to be in the roundtable with us coming up on Sunday as well, and I'm glad to know that you have your feet firmly planted on terra firma at home, at least for the next few days. You've been doing a lot of traveling. And every time you do, it's fighting for gun rights, it's teaching school safety, it's talking to people. Ladies and gentlemen, Ryan is the real deal, and we're proud to have him on the program as a regular guest. Armed American Radio's Daily Defense, guys. We're never going to stop. Just like the left, we're never going to stop. We're going to get up and do it again tomorrow because they don't want us to. Until we meet on the radio tomorrow, carry on, carry off, and carry absolutely everywhere. Never, ever, ever leave your cave without your club. Enjoy your day. Stay safe. We'll see you on the radio tomorrow, guys.
All clear.